Good evening and welcome to The Square. Tonight is a very timely discussion. We're going to look at the entertainment sector in Rwanda, a review of the entertainment sector in Rwanda, specifically looking at regulation, positioning, and a lot more. As many of you know, Rwanda is a country that has gradually been reopening parts of its economy, especially the entertainment sector, as seen with various initiatives from various authorities such as the city of Kigali, the opening of the car-free zones. We're also looking at an increase in internationally headlining musicians, headlining concerts in Rwanda, and so on and so forth. But also we want to look at how authorities as well as industry players can really synergize their energies to really tap into this sector, especially ahead of upcoming events. Like many of you know, the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, CHOGM, taking place in June this year. So a lot to unpack tonight. And I'm very happy to welcome with us our guests. And I'll kick off with introducing our guests. We have with us Ariela Kageruka, who is the Acting Chief Tourism Officer at the Rwanda Development Board. Ariela, it's a pleasure to have you on the square.
Thank you.
Great. We also have with us Raoul Rugamba, who is the founder of Africa in Colors. He's also a seasoned events promoter and has been in the industry for the past decade and more. Raoul, great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Great. And I would just like to encourage our viewers, as always, to put forward their comments, their suggestions on our social media feed using hashtag #TheSquareRW, which we'll be reading later on. My name is PC, host of The Square. As always, I'm joined by The Square resident panelists, and I'm very happy to welcome them. I'll start off with the lady on my left, Berna Namata. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You know I have a big smile on my face. Yeah, congratulations, Berna, on your recent nuptials. We're very happy for you.
Thank you.
Great. Charlie, always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Same here, Dana. How are you?
Good.
Congratulations, Berna.
Congratulations. Yeah, great news for some of the Square panelists this weekend. So we'll kick off with the conversation at hand, just looking at the entertainment landscape. Like I said earlier on, it has been a sector that has been gradually reopening. A lot of people are excited about it. Many of us, inhabitants of the city of Kigali, have been witnessing some interesting events, concerts. We've been looking at car-free zones that are reopening, new car-free zones that are being utilized, and that sort of thing. So generally, a revival of this sector. And my first question to you, Raoul, before I go to Ariela, is if you could share with us, Raoul, a few highlights of what this landscape looks like. You know, I don't want to say we are post-COVID, we're still within the COVID-19 pandemic, but right now, just give us a feel, you know, as an industry player, what does this events and the entertainment sector look like at the moment in Rwanda?
Well, for the moment, I could say things, well, let's say since things have been opening up, so we have seen a lot of concerts coming up, parties and gatherings of artists, some local artists, but also continental artists. So that looks really positive, and it shows how people were missing the party time, and also how the event promoters are eager to do business again in this business, but also in terms of artists, you know, they really wanted the platform again to showcase their talents. So it's really positive, despite a lot of challenges going on. But yeah.
Great. And Raoul, if you could share with us, you know, well, not pre-pandemic, but when the pandemic began compared to where we are now, as an industry player, your personal experience, there's a huge difference? Is there a huge difference? What specifically has changed compared to 2021 to where we are just, you know, finishing the first quarter of 2022?
So I think I would say, well, despite the measures we have to play with, COVID times, where things are limited, people are limited, the timing is limited, we're limited. Now things are opening up, right? We have more time to host events. Again, there are still challenges we are facing, but you could see that people are now coming together. We don't have a lot of restrictions in terms of COVID, which is a good thing for the industry because we have to maximize each person coming in the event. So that's, I think, a positive thing for the event and the promoter, the artist as well. So I think that would be what I could say about that.
Thank you very much, Raoul. Ariella, from RDB's perspective, it's really putting the same question to you. But if you could share with us, from a sort of decision-making policy level, what are some of the concerted efforts with, RDB and other stakeholders, City of Kigali, Rwanda National Police, local government? I feel like there's been a sort of concerted effort to put in place these measures to really enable this sector, looking at the beginning of this year to kind of be revived. So if you could share with us, what are some of these decisions that were taken to, revive the entertainment and event sector?
Yeah, I think maybe backtracking a bit, where the entertainment industry, is coming from, pandemic. First of all, some of the issues we used to have were we don't have enough entertainment areas, we don't have enough entertainment infrastructure, we don't have, a conducive environment for us to thrive as artists and as investors that would like to, put our money towards this sector. And what has been done, of course, in partnership with private sector, was to create the right infrastructure, create spaces that can make the cities, Kigali City as one of them, as vibrant as possible. And we've hosted a number of concerts, even within the pandemic itself. At the peak of the pandemic, we had even numbers that we'd never had before, even at the beginning of the pandemic. So, but with measures that allow us to recreate safely. And those measures have helped us to reopen the economy gradually. And we've seen, I think Raoul just touched on it, that there were some artists that chose to come to Rwanda at a time when they wouldn't have perhaps chosen to come and entertain our people. And we had the industry also contribute to reviving and generating as much revenue as we could at the time, and we continue. So that's what I can say as government, and we do not work in silos. We always work with the private sector. We always consult them before measures are put in place. We try as much as possible to coordinate our efforts with the private sector to weigh, the economic gains, but also being able to have these measures not take us back. Or these activities take us back. That's why such measures are put in place. And we've seen that Kigali was again colorful, lively for the last few months, and we hope this continues.
Thank you very much, Ariella. I'd like to, before going to the next part of the conversation, look to hear from the Square resident panelists, and I'll start with you, Charles. For obvious reasons, you're also a key player in this industry. You're a proprietor of an events-based, entity, and just what does it look like right now compared to 2020, 2021, and what are your expectations for the year moving forward in this sector?
I prefer not to comment in that capacity, but in my capacity as a resident panelist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Although you wear two hats, but yeah.
I think it's very important and to emphasize the importance of coming out of a pandemic and having fun. And I will speak to this fact from two different angles. One, from a mental health perspective, that people have been indoors for too long. We've spoken quite a number of times about deteriorating mental health, a number of high rise in suicide cases and suicide attempts, and therefore people can't wait to go out and have fun and get relieved. Some few friends of mine were joking that for the first time, their spouses are more than happy to let them get out of the house for as many hours as they can, because it's a huge mental relief. and psychological relief for that matter. The second one is about making money, and this is irrespective of how you look at it. So entertainment is generally associated with the night. And if you look at the night economy, we're just talking about events only, but if you look at motorbike riders, cab riders, bouncers, DJs, club owners, people who sell food in the night, people who sell alcohol, commercial sex workers, whoever you look at it, cleaners, people, the sort of the multiplier effect of that 100,000 francs that you spend, it gets to all those people along the value chain, and all those people have families for that matter. So people have been broke, people have been mentally disturbed, so they couldn't wait to get out. So that said, I think it is something that the regulator, and I'm glad that Ariella is here, have to put into consideration, that it's not just about having fun, it's about livelihoods, and that people getting out of dire situations, but also people being able to make money and survive.
And just very quickly, Charles, you know, this conversation, we're also having it in light of the fact that we're opening up, but also trying to position ourselves to really tap into this sector ahead of key events, like I mentioned earlier on Trogam that's happening, and a series of different, you know, based on my events that are happening later on in the year. If, you know, you've talked about, you know, the changes and how the welcome change it has brought for people in this sector, in this, you know, the night economy. But moving forward, if for instance, policy, you know, makers were listening, how would you suggest that, you know, we should really position ourselves to tap into this sector ahead of these key events that will bring in lots of international, you know, sort of guests to sample what we have to offer in this sector?
I think, first things first, I think everybody needs to be speaking the same language, and whether you're an events manager, or you're a club owner, or you're a regulator, or you're a law enforcement officer, or you're the municipality, we all have to look at things in a similar lens. It is very difficult to harmonize because they have different ways of looking at things. The guy of the city of Kigali will come up and say, no, you cannot park on my pavements. But the person who is in charge of regulating a night spot will give you license to operate that night spot in as long as you've ticked certain boxes, noise pollution, and so on and so forth. Then the policeman will come and say, if you're not allowed to park on the street because there's a no parking sign, I will clamp your car. So just as one example I've given. So and then if you clamp that person's car, that means the other person who is licensed to operate as a night spot will have no business. So I think there's harmonization that is required, and that harmonization is lacking. Stepping into a very big event like Chogam, it's a huge opportunity for us to be able to streamline that coordination across the respective institutions. Yes.
Thanks, Charles. Brenna?
I think that we still have a long way to go. First of all, to understand that if we are working so hard, one, on security, for instance, security, Rwanda is safe. What's the point of people not enjoying nightlife in a very safe country? You know, that's one. Number two, we are saying we need more production within the economy. And so if you're saying that most people should be only active between 8 and maybe 9 p.m., already you're missing out on revenues on the other side. Now, I think the disconnect that tends to happen is that most of the time, people in boardrooms making these decisions don't actually go out. So they have a limited understanding of the typical nightlife. I'll give you an example. I mean, if you look at the minutes and they say clubs will close at 2 a.m., clearly those people are not going to nightclubs because 2 a.m. is when actually the nightclub is open.
When the action begins.
You know, yes. So there's room to really go back to the basics. First of all, have the officials themselves go out and experience this life beyond policing, but to go out and make decisions from living the life, you know, as the other people who are working within the same space would like to have it, you know. So there's that. I think you see that gap. You see a gap in terms of, you know, the decisions that are made because people have not really carefully lived that life to relate to it. To understand that maybe for a bouncer, the only hours they will have maybe from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. That is the only time they are active, you know. Or if you are a night cab driver, the only time, your peak time is 4 a.m. Yeah, so the moment we pay attention to that detail, then it should guide how decisions are made. The other thing is to change the mindset. People still, there's a perception that entertainment is for young people, you know. Entertainment is for young people, and as such, it is a young people issue, which is not true. To his earlier point around mental health, you know, you need even adults to have spaces where they can go and relax, you know. So how do you create, first of all, again, these spaces where even the adults can go, and also young people, and let's talk about the children too within the entertainment space. Again, the discussion tends to be dominated with bars. Entertainment is not just bars or concerts. Beyond that, you know, for instance, if we said our nightlife would also include food markets, there's revenue around that. It's also entertainment. You know, if you go to street food at night, that is so much fun. So we need to kind of rethink some of these things, not look at entertainment as just noise and young people wanting to hang out, but look at the value that it creates within the economy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So a more holistic view.
Yeah.
And I like, you know, you always mention it. Right now, I know the topic is more adults-oriented entertainment, but also when we look at entertainment, let's even look at spaces that are safe for children or, you know, families. And also to your point of, you know, street food. That's an economy, a night economy on its own, you know, that really, in many countries around the world, we know it's tightly merged to, you know, night entertainment. Yeah, so very valid points there from the resident panelists, and I'll just like to encourage our viewers to tweet, to send messages on Facebook and that sort of thing using #TheSquareRW. I will now come to my guests, our guests, Ariela and Raul. And yeah, like I said earlier on, and you know, just hearing from Charles, you know, it's great that we're opening up. Everyone is excited. Personally, I think maybe it's because we were locked down for more or less restricted for 2 years, but I feel like what's happening is even more exciting than 2019. I don't know, the car-free zones, you know, whether it's Biryogo, whether it's this, you know, Canal Olympia, it's a good space for concerts, the Kigali Arena, you know, I feel like the infrastructure is growing for us to really enjoy this sector. So really looking forward to it growing even in this year. But for sure, there's still challenges. And in the spirit of solution orientation, we would really like to also discuss recommendations tonight. So like I said earlier on, some of the challenges are sort of synergies between industry players and regulatory authorities. You know, we've heard cases of, you know, the noise pollution laws are not that clear. You know, just recently there was a cancelled concert, which had not been done in a long, long time. So, you know, some challenges still exist. So other than these that I mentioned, Raul and Ariela, if you could share with us some other challenges that you experience or that you witness, you know, as a regulatory body or as an industry player, you know, looking across both sides, but some of the challenges and some of the recommendations you can attach to these challenges. And I'll kick off with you, Raul. Mostly because, you know, you're most affected. You're really in the business, your company, your promotion company, and you deal with lots of the content we're talking about tonight.
So I think let me say this in few points. So the first one will be the noise pollution, which started. So I think it's the elephant in the room for many years, and some had their equipment taken away, them being in jail, etc. But we never understood really what the noise pollution was. And I think it's just a miscommunication of people between institutions or players. But again, it's at the end of the day, what we want, the private sector and the government, is really to see the country moving forward and shining at the end of the tunnel. So and I think one of the things that makes it be like that is the importance we need to give to the entertainment industry. We need to look at, as you mentioned, we need to look at it as beyond an artist taking a mic and singing just like that, right? We need to look at it as a solution to a hotel who has to pay bills or a loan at the bank. We need to look at it as a sector which can respond to health sector, education, etc. So entertainment is being used for that, not only entertaining people. That's another thing, but also it can be used to bring people in a country and then consume the rest of the product or services offered within a country. So when we look at it that way, we can avoid the noise pollution challenges, because someone who comes and decides to shut down a concert have to be sure that there will be consequences to him as well, because sometimes it's just from his own understanding or willing, and we confuse that to an institution, right? So we just have to make sure that we understand it on that level, try to differentiate a personal choice and make sure that there are consequences to that person as well. Because as we play with the money on the table, we lose something when it happens. But again, we don't want the government also to lose money, to lose opportunities. That's one. And then something else also I can speak about is how we have to overview the artists. So artists are those investors we need tomorrow. They can be investors. They can be important players in the industry of the rest of other industries we want to put forward as a country. So we need to look at it that way. So when we invest in infrastructures, when we invest in a lot of government initiatives, we also have to say, listen, for these things to happen, for them to really work, we have also to invest in an artist. Because at the end of the day, the artist is what can make those other investments really be successful. So we will also have to balance those two. When we invest in infrastructures, what will have to happen in those infrastructures? We need content in those infrastructures. So we have to rethink how we invest in artists, because they are the ones who will make those infrastructures run. So again, it's also something to bring on the table as a private sector, to look at it as not a risky investment area, but an opportunity for them to make money. But again, it's a collaboration between all the stakeholders. So I think those will be my few cents on your question.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Raul. We'll definitely be coming back to that. But what I'm seeming to get, from everyone here tonight is a sort of harmony, institutions not working in silos, and also a mindset change when it comes to the entertainment sector. It's an economy on its own. It really is a contributor to national GDP, and we just need to structure it in such a way that we can really reap the benefits of a vibrant, entertainment sector. Ariela, I would like to take the question to you. From an RDB perspective, what are some of the challenges you see, and what are some of the solutions? Especially because I know you work a lot with, the private sector in creating these opportunities, these sort of events in entertainment and events.
I think first of all, acknowledging that there are challenges is a good beginning. It's a good start to fixing those challenges. But there is commitment to work together. There's commitment to fix those loopholes that are probably coming in the way of all the efforts that are being done, that have been put in place, that we've really worked hard with artists that have been enjoying this infrastructure that I'm talking about, and their talent, being seen to regional, continental, global scene is as important as any other sector that would benefit from government investment. And that said, the entertainment sector has been hardly hit by COVID-19, obviously, just like any other industry. And reviving this particular sector is a key to generating or being able to boost the revenues that are generated from tourism, for instance, and boosting domestic spend. And that's, I think it's Berna and Charles that did bring this particular aspect of looking at it from the economic point of view. But we should not only look at that particular side, we should also look at the social side. Are we recreating the same spirit that we manage COVID with? We should manage noise pollution with that particular spirit as well. So entertainment should not happen just to make money. It should happen to make people happy. So once people are happy, others should not be unhappy. So how do we balance the two? How do we create entertainment zones? How do we create entertainment spaces where, for instance, a concert can happen until 2 a.m. and so on? And then what are those other events that can happen in other places that do not exceed a certain hour? And what kind of noise levels are we talking about? So that's why I started saying that acknowledging that there are challenges is the beginning to fixing that. And we are working together with other stakeholders within the government and the private sector. We've been consulting the private sector a lot on how to, create guidelines that are detailed enough, that make it clear on, this is what you need to do. But again, we should not wait to be regulated before we should be proactive as an industry as well. You are an accommodation establishment owner. Why would you make noise when you have people who, you have 20 keys, 20 rooms that are occupied? Those clients are complaining about the noise that's coming from 20 other clients that are doing something else. So how do you balance, and how do you put it part of your business model in a way that makes sense for your business, makes sense for the people around you, makes sense for the economy at large? How do we live in harmony? And then how do we work on it proactively? We shouldn't wait for regulators to come to your premises to tell you your noise levels are too high. But even you as a person who, after working so hard until 2 a.m., you want to go and sleep. Imagine if you go to sleep and you find yourself sleeping in a very noisy place. You'll not be able to wake up at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. to be able to prepare for your next day. So how do we work out those particular balances in a way that makes sense for everybody? So that's the key. First of all, just to address that particular issue. The other issue is, I think, planning, proper planning. Failing to plan is already a failure before you even start. At the beginning of the idea of organizing an event, you should not think about the idea before you think about where it will happen. What kind of equipment will you need? Do you have the talent? Do you have the right the people? Will you be able to mobilize the audience in a way that will make sense for the money that you've invested? So that lack of, not lack, but I think loopholes, let me call them loopholes in planning, do affect the entertainment industry so much. And also the fact that they cannot raise enough support and sponsorship and perhaps contributions from different players that would want to support and be part of the agenda that these people are pushing. But because of this not because of not having like a clear calendar and like a dashboard of sorts that we, even if it's quarterly or 6 months or annual would be even better for big events. And coming to big events, we've been working really hard with the private sector to attract global event organizers in Rwanda to utilize this infrastructure to work with our talent here in Rwanda, to position our talent on the global scene. And this has been working. We now have new entertainment spaces coming. We have the Ujiri Courts, which is an amazing entertainment space that is going to come. Government is, opening up and leaving what I would call office buildings or administration of buildings to leave them for entertainment. That's a big commitment. You know what Kigali Arena is, how many months it took to build it. And since then, it's been busy. Yeah, we have the Kigali Cultural Village with Canal Olympia that's been hosting concerts and many more. So the commitment is there. Challenges are there. The most important thing is being committed to fix them together.
Thank you very much, Ariela. I would like to hear from Brenna and Charles. Brenna, I'll start off with you.
I think, like she said, the infrastructure is there, and clearly there's a lot of effort going into setting world-class infrastructure, and that is becoming visible. I think where we still have the gap is, one, having our local entrepreneurs to understand where they can position themselves within this space, because it's quite competitive. On one hand, yes, you want to attract global events, but then you also want to support local entrepreneurs to take advantage of these infrastructure. So far, I think, like Raoul mentioned, the challenge is still with enforcement. I don't know, she spoke to the issue of planning, some of them failing to do the proper planning. It could be part of the reason why they have a problem with enforcement agencies. But I think it is possible to prevent some of these things. In the interest of protecting even their clients, because if someone has paid for a ticket and maybe there are 2 hours of performance and then it's shut down, they've lost money. So it's not just the entrepreneur, but also this person who has made time and wanted to be there. Who compensates them? So maybe if we begin to see that the enforcement also looking at that other aspect to say if the event organizer fails to cater for ABCD, this is what will happen if the police, for instance, is forced to stop the concert. Right now, it's not clear. There's a lot of backlash, or it was closed, and no one really knows why, and who is it the organizer's fault, or so how you collect, you kind of deal with that, and it's also, I think, a PR problem. Right now, the mindset is, the enforcement agencies are tough on us and we can do, whether that is true. Listening to Ariela, clearly the political will is there, they're doing everything they can to make it easy, but the perception out there is that the enforcement is quite strict. So how do you address that gap? I think that's to the different stakeholders. But beyond that, I don't know what it will take for people to take the entertainment industry really seriously.
I agree with you on that, yeah.
Really seriously. Because the moment you treat them like you treat someone who is investing in real estate, then maybe some things will change, even how they operate. I think that is the beginning of all problems, because when someone is not really given the attention and the respect, how you treat them, then there's room for all sorts of issues to go wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just have to reiterate it. I think you really bang on when you talked about how you know, if we could treat the entertainment industry like the way we treat other industries, seriously speaking, that is the beginning of change. You know, these issues, we're in the second part of the conversation talking about problems, and really it's, like I said earlier on, it's just the mindset. A lot of people who have the capacity to make these decisions just really undermine it as a sector, undermine it as an industry, the key players who are there, and yet there's been so much investment by government into creating infrastructures, just like Ariela, you know, is saying, but there's a mismatch between the commitment and then, you know, sort of how the industry is handled by people who are in charge of regulating. That mismatch, I think, is really like what's plaguing it or preventing it from growing. And again, we really have to be able to position ourselves to prepare to tap into this sector ahead of really massive global events such as Chogam and many more to come. Charles, over to you.
A few years ago, the city of Kigali embarked on a beautification campaign. They planted the entire city with palm trees, put beautiful walkways, street lights, a lot of green, hired companies to maintain that green and so on and so forth. Fast forward, it was extremely expensive for any offender to walk on the grass that has been planted. If you knocked a palm tree, if you knocked the street pole, you could easily be fined to the tune of 1 million francs and more. Why was it very punitive? Because the city of Kigali had spent a lot of money in beautifying the city. So they had to ensure that people know it is expensive for you if you spoil that beauty. Ariela has dazzled us with the investments that they have done. I think the biggest investor in the entertainment industry is the government of Rwanda. You look at all this infrastructure that Ariela has given us, like the convention, the convention center, the exhibition village, the cultural village, the Kigali Arena, and then talk even about the hotels. Most of the hotels have actually been built on government money, and so on and so forth. The stadium itself, mention any event, venue, and government has put in its money. Today, if you steal government money as a government official, you will land into serious trouble and you'll get locked up. So, who is that government official who thinks they can play around with this government investment on all these entertainment spots? And to your question, Bana, on what it takes, the Auditor General needs to wake up and say the famous phrase they like using on value for money audits. All this money that we have invested in this infrastructure, in these spaces, who is that government official who wants to sabotage that government investment by not allowing people to enjoy these spaces? I think that's where people need to be held accountable for not allowing Rwandese to enjoy what the government has spent on. It's like building a road and you don't allow people to drive onto that road, or a cycling lane and you don't allow people to cycle onto that lane. So I think people need to understand, first of all, this is a city. It's a city. The city should not go to bed at 2 a.m. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't. I forgot something very, very, very important that's beyond infrastructure, and that's the billions of francs that have been spent on the Visit Rwanda campaign. We are not telling people to come to Rwanda to sleep early. And that's a message that needs to go across everybody who cares to listen. So once we understand, and in my opinion, that's the message that needs to be sent across, that once we understand that all this investment that the government has made has to make a return, then we will take the entertainment industry serious.
But when? When will
people
that be?
need to, no, if there is somebody out there who does not, who wants the government to make losses, they should be held individually accountable. Yeah.
I want us to read our tweets very quickly. I'll definitely be coming back to our guests, just to hear what they have, their feedback on what Charles and Brenna have put forward. The first tweet, if you could have it on our screens, is from Amos, who says that the pandemic modified every aspect of modern life for over a year now. The entertainment industry has had to change in many ways to adapt to the inability to perform in person. Actually, the entertainment industry has seen a massive drop in revenue, especially since up to 80% is gained from live shows. So his point is that it's a struggling sector, as we open up because of the way it was hard hit by the pandemic. We have another tweet coming in from Dolapo, always glad to see his tweets. He says, valid realities by Charles Harbour and Brenna on the entire ecosystem around the night economy, which happens on a daily and weekend basis. There seems to be an unforeseen brewing challenge too, which affects operators of varied strata in the night economy in certain areas. That's a tweet from Dolapo. We have another tweet, I think, again, from Amos. And he says that leisure time has been a determining factor in the development of recreation and entertainment as an industry. Entertainment has grown as an industry in step with increased income and the time available for leisure and recreation. And he's talking about increased income. Increased income, you have more spend, domestic spend, which Ariela even talked about. So just listening to Charles and Brenna, what will it take? What will it take for especially authorities or policymakers to understand how important this sector is and to look at it holistically? This is the message we're sending out, not only from industry players, from artists, but also the whole value chain when it comes to the night economy and entertainment, events in Rwanda. I'd like to go over to you, Raoul and Ariela, just to hear, what feedback do you have based on the tweets and based on what Charles and Brenna have been saying. So I'll kick off with you, Raoul.
So I think one thing is we just have to make sure is first bring together those entities, sit down and brainstorm together, because I think we are in this together. So we have to come up with a common solution. So it's just a matter of sitting down and figuring out this together. We have experiences. The government has also a way of doing business, etc., and just understand each other and move forward. And then the second thing is, again, what I just said earlier, is really to put the entertainment as a response to any other investment which is done by individuals. So if you are an owner of a hotel, you can't run the hotel just with food and beds. It's not possible. In some countries, we have seen even hotels shifting from their usual business model to models based on entertainment for the hotel to sustain their businesses. So entertainment is more than just having a mic. It's everything else that comes around it. So we also have to consider those people who are investing in the real estate, in hotel businesses, and understand that wherever they are, any position or etc., they are there to do business, and their business is based mainly on entertainment. So the next door might be a neighbor, but I'm sure if the neighbor is the owner of the hotel, he will never hear the noises, because you have to pay the bills to the bank the next day, right? So we have to understand that sometimes you can call the police or authorities because it's not your own hotel, right? But we have to understand that someone else is paying a loan, right? And understand that. And then the second thing is we just have to be cautious about this. We choose those locations based on the business of the concert, for example, or the show. So you can't have 100 people, 500 people with a limited budget and try to do a concert in bigger infrastructures. It's not possible. It doesn't make sense. So you choose venues depending on your budget and the business around it, right? And it also sometimes based on the owner of the hotel, because he's trying to come up with with everything else that is offering in the hotel. So you want an artist to come there. An artist is coming, yes, as someone who can sing, but also as an influencer. So when I know that an artist X came to this hotel, as a fan, I can go to that hotel. So we have also to consider that as well. And again, I think today as a creator living somewhere in a country, you don't want, they don't think they can come to Rwanda as a creators. You can come here to enjoy, it's clean, etc. But as a creator, what do we have to do as the players of the industry and the government to say, as a creator, what do we have to create as an environment for someone in this country to come in Rwanda and do business as a creator? So we really have to rethink how we do business in those areas. It's not just about, having fun or etc., but also thinking about someone who has to leave a country, sometimes with money or sometimes with an idea, and come to Rwanda to create. So you can come to Rwanda where you have all those challenges waiting for you. You can just choose to go next door. So we have to also consider all those challenges, etc. And then the last thing is the investment part, which is very, very crucial. We can do wherever, we can have all the infrastructures, but they can be empty. So we have to rethink of how do we invest in these industries to have those infrastructures filled in. Putting together an event is not a joke. It requires muscles. So if we have to rethink the entertainment industry, we also have to rethink of how do we have money to put into this. So that's also not only the government, but it's one of the key players to bring us together as private sector and public institutions to really rethink how do we bring things in those infrastructures. So that's investment. So we have to put that forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Raul. I really like that last point of yours, especially talking about, you invest in all this infrastructure and it's empty. It's such a damn shame if this trend, it's a trend that comes up and continues. So definitely spot on how we need to rethink investing in the creative industry, specifically events-oriented and entertainment-oriented events. And just quickly, something that also came to my mind before I go to Ariella, I feel like the conversation we'll be talking about sort of night entertainment, but there's so much more also in terms of street festivals. Things that happen during the day that are even family-oriented. We have car-free zones that, I think 3 car-free zones now, from Biryogo, the one in town and the one in Gisimenti.
2.5.
Yeah, I know you don't like that. You don't think the one in town is a car-free zone, but if we had street festivals, different food vendors, and like everyone is saying here, from Ariella to Raul and Brenna and Charles, and look at how we can harmonize the regulation of all this to make the city really vibrant. There's so much potential. And I like your point early on, Brenna, when you said, one of the things we're proud about is that we're one of the safest countries and one of the safest cities. Why? What stops us from being vibrant, really? What stops us from being vibrant? So really great points all around. Our last speaker, I would like to come to you, Ariella. Just your general feedback on what everyone has said, including some of the tweets, before we conclude the show.
I'm highly inspired by the interventions that I got from the Twitter feed, but also Raul's points. And what this highlight is, I would say, a few areas actually of opportunities, because challenges should be turned into opportunities always. We started with a lack of space for entertainment. Now the spaces are there, but we want now to, being able to customize them to the needs of the different event organizers or activities. And I see there a good opportunity there for, some venues or some accommodation establishments that can customize or I would say, rethink or refurbish their accommodation or their buildings in a way that creates the environment that Raoul was talking about. If we're talking about Kigali Arena and so big, how do we go to places where you can curate bespoke experiences? And in other cities, there are boutique hotels, there are cater for people who are in need of for entertainment. And there seems to be a lack of diversification, perhaps, within the sector, and that's an opportunity right there for the private sector to say, this is a challenge. People are looking for places where we can, of course, when there is no entertainment, this hotel can function, catering to other sort of type of clientele. But right now, what the entertainment industry wants is, we want to be able to be flexible. We want to have bespoke experiences. And we're seeing that even with the new investment that are coming within the entertainment industry that I spoke about just a few minutes ago, they're actually taking into consideration such things and prioritizing local content, prioritizing local artists. And that really inspired me when Raoul was saying it, and I guess that's going to be another area where the private sector can also speak to each other. The private sector in the entertainment industry, the private sector that is investing in tourism establishments, how do they talk to each other in a way that resolves the different issues that are actually there? Because the doing business environment in Rwanda is outstanding. The regulation that we've all been talking about should be actually creating a conducive environment, not to be creating something that creates obstacles. We should always look at it as progressive guidelines or progressive measures that are always put in place through a consultative approach. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ariela. And your last words, I'd like to just really emphasize a consultative approach. Before such, a lot of us here cannot have this discussion without thinking as to what happened over the weekend. But like Brenna said, we don't know, how that decision was made, whether, the events organizer or the government authority, how that event was cancelled at the last minute, we are yet to find out. But a consultative approach is so necessary, and I like that you said earlier on, RDB has been engaging with private sector stakeholders when it comes to this industry, and I really hope that not only continues but grows. But definitely a consultative approach is needed. We've come to the end of the show. I can see Charles signaling that he wants...
one sentence I think how we're going to get out of this. Let's rid the city of villagers who take urban decisions.
Sorry, what does that mean? Let's read.
Yes, let's rid the city of villagers who take urban decisions. So the city must be run, and decisions of the city must be run by people who know about urban life, not
about
villagers.
Urban development.
Yes.
Okay. We have tweets that are still coming in. Unfortunately, we don't have time to read them. We've come to the end of the show, but please keep them going. We really want this to be a topic that we can engage on further, based on the way Rwanda is opening up, based on some of the challenges that remain and the opportunities. We really need synergy on how we can make this city as vibrant as possible, looking at all sectors, the entertainment sector notwithstanding. So that said, I'd like to thank our guests, Ariela and Raoul, if you could have them on our screens. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And Raoul.
Mine.
So,
great, thank you. Charlie, Brenna, always a pleasure to co-host. To our viewers, thank you for tuning in. To our viewers who have been tweeting, keep the conversation going using #TheSquareW. To our partners, Uzi Collections and Bourbon Coffee, thank you for always supporting The Square. Have a good night. See you again next week.